Ruby Franca and Jody Hildebrandt. She had 2.5 million subscribers. Parenting blogs quoted her advice. She sat on panels about raising children in the digital age. Ruby Franca, the face of the YouTube channel 8 Passengers, was one of the most visible family vloggers on the internet. And on August 30th, 2023, her 12-year-old son showed up at a neighbor's house in Ivins, Utah, emaciated, covered in open wounds, and with duct tape still stuck to his skin. The neighbor called 911 immediately. When paramedics arrived, they described the boy's condition as consistent with severe, prolonged abuse. He was malnourished to the point that his ribs were visible through his skin. He had deep lacerations on his wrists and ankles, injuries consistent with being bound with rope or restraints for extended periods. Some of the wounds were infected. He begged the adults around him for food and water. Police traced him back to the home of Jody Hildebrandt, a licensed mental health counselor and Ruby Franca's business partner. Inside the house, officers found Franca's 10-year-old daughter in similar condition, malnourished and wounded, showing signs of prolonged restraint and deprivation. Investigators would later describe the conditions inside that home as resembling a concentration camp. Ruby Franca and Jody Hildebrandt were both arrested the same day. To understand how a woman with millions of followers ended up here, you have to rewind several years. The 8 Passengers channel launched in 2015 and featured Ruby, her husband Kevin Franca, and their 6 children navigating everyday life. The content was polished and aspirational. Ruby positioned herself as a no-nonsense mother who believed in structure, discipline, and accountability. But even in the early days, viewers noticed something unsettling. In one video, Ruby announced she had refused to bring her son lunch at school because he forgot it at home. She called it a lesson in responsibility. The boy was in elementary school. In another, she described taking away her daughter's bedroom as punishment, making the child sleep on a beanbag for months. Comments started shifting from supportive to alarmed. People began asking where the line was between strict parenting and cruelty. By 2020, the family dynamic on camera had become visibly strained. Kevin and Ruby separated. Several of the older children distanced themselves publicly from their mother. The channel's subscriber count was declining, and Ruby had fallen deeper under the influence of Jody Hildebrandt, who ran a program called Connections, a life coaching business that former clients described as manipulative and cult-like in its methods of control. Hildebrandt's license as a therapist had been revoked back in 2012 for previous violations. That did not stop her from building a new empire around the idea that children needed to be broken of their natural selfishness through extreme discipline. She reportedly convinced Franca that her children were harboring evil spirits, that they were sinful, disobedient, and needed to be punished physically and spiritually in order to be saved. The methods escalated beyond anything anyone could have anticipated. Investigators later detailed what the 2 youngest Franca children endured in the months leading up to that August day. They were starved and denied water for days at a time, forced into manual labor as punishment, bound with rope and restraints until their skin broke open. When the wounds from the bindings became infected, they were treated with cayenne pepper and honey instead of medical care. The children later told investigators they had been told the abuse was their fault, that they deserved it, that they were being purified. Both Franca and Hildebrandt described the torture as acts of love and religious necessity. In December of 2023, Ruby Franca pleaded guilty to 4 counts of aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony in Utah. Jody Hildebrandt pleaded guilty to the same charges. On February 20th, 2024, both women were sentenced to 4 consecutive terms of 1 to 15 years in prison each, the maximum allowed under Utah law, carrying a potential 30-year sentence. During her sentencing hearing, Ruby Franca claimed she had been led to believe the punishments were righteous. She described Hildebrandt as having a hold over her that distorted her judgment. The judge was unmoved. He noted that Franca had documented years of escalating harshness toward her own children on a public platform, long before Hildebrandt ever entered the picture. The pattern was already there. The camera just made it visible for 2.5 million people who watched and did not stop it in time. At the height of her popularity, Ruby Franca's videos were getting millions of views. Brands wanted to work with her. Other family vloggers cited her as an inspiration. She built a community around the idea that she was doing motherhood the right way, that her children were thriving because of her discipline, not in spite of it. Her children were being starved, bound, and tortured in a house that smelled like cayenne pepper and desperation. And she filmed content about parenting while it was happening. Both women are currently imprisoned at the Utah State Correctional Facility. And the children they claimed to be saving are still recovering from what was done to them in the name of love. But if Ruby Franca used her platform to disguise abuse as parenting, the next creator used his to disguise predation as fandom. And his victims never saw it coming because they adored him. Austin Jones. He had 540,000 subscribers. Teenage girls lined up at his meet and greets, phones out, smiling, starstruck. Parents would drop their kids off at his concerts, grateful their daughter had found a positive role model online. Austin Jones was a YouTube musician from Chicago who built his career on a cappella covers and original pop songs. He had tens of millions of views, a verified account, and brand deals lined up. The kind of parasocial relationship with his audience that every creator dreams of building. Fans made edits of him, tagged him in posts, traveled to see him perform at events like the Vans Warped Tour. They genuinely believed he cared about them. And that was exactly what he counted on. Because behind the camera, Austin Jones was exploiting the same audience that made him famous. In June of 2017, federal agents arrested Jones at O'Hare International Airport. The charges were devastating. Prosecutors said he had used his celebrity status to coerce at least 6 underage fans, girls between 14 and 15 years old, into recording and sending him sexually explicit videos. He would message them on social media, shower them with attention and praise, then slowly escalate the conversations until he was making specific, graphic demands. He told the girls they needed to prove they were his biggest fans. If they hesitated, he guilted them, told them they were letting him down, told them they did not really love him if they would not do it. The manipulation was calculated and relentless. Investigators recovered chat logs spanning years. One victim sent him 15 separate videos. Another sent 25. Jones later admitted during the investigation that he had attempted to solicit explicit material from at least 30 additional minors through Facebook. 30. That was on top of the 6 confirmed victims. What made the case even more disturbing was the timeline. Jones had actually faced public accusations of this exact behavior back in 2015, 2 full years before his arrest. A petition circulated trying to remove him from the Warped Tour lineup. Other creators started calling him out publicly. It looked like his career might be finished. But then Jones released a YouTube video, tearful and apologetic, saying he had made mistakes but had learned from them. His fans rallied behind him. Other creators backed off. The accusations faded into the background noise of the internet. They should not have faded, because prosecutors later proved that Jones never stopped. Not for a single day. The predatory behavior continued uninterrupted right up until federal agents put him in handcuffs at the airport. In 2019, Austin Jones pleaded guilty to 1 count of receipt of child pornography, a federal charge that carries some of the harshest penalties in the American legal system. Standing before a judge in a Chicago courtroom, he was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. Prosecutors described his crimes in stark terms during sentencing. They said he preyed on the youth, the vulnerabilities, and most glaringly, the adoration of his victims. He turned their admiration into a weapon against them. He did not stumble into this behavior once or twice. He pursued it relentlessly, across multiple platforms, for years, targeting children who trusted him completely. The victim impact statements were gut-wrenching. One girl described how she had idolized Jones, how she had begged her parents to take her to his shows, how she had believed he was her friend. She was 15 when he first contacted her. She described panic attacks, sleepless nights, and a feeling of shame so deep she could not tell anyone what had happened for over a year. Another victim's family described watching their daughter withdraw from friends, from school, from everything she used to enjoy, all because a man she worshipped had exploited that worship in the most devastating way imaginable. Jones is currently serving his federal sentence. His YouTube channel has been scrubbed. His music vanished from streaming platforms, and the fan community that defended him against those 2015 allegations went permanently silent. 500,000 people subscribed to watch him perform. None of them knew what he was demanding from children in private messages. But while Austin Jones used fame to prey on strangers, the next case involves a creator whose crime happened in broad daylight, on camera, in front of their 3-year-old daughter. And it started with a tweet posted just hours before everything went wrong. Mona Lisa Perez. Me and Pedro are probably going to shoot one of the most dangerous videos ever. His idea, not mine. Mona Lisa Perez tweeted that on June 26, 2017. A few hours later, her boyfriend was dead, and she was the one holding the gun. Mona Lisa Perez was 19 years old. Pedro Ruiz III was 22. They were young parents living in Hallstatt, Minnesota, with a 3-year-old daughter and a second child on the way. They ran a YouTube channel called La Mona Lisa, and they had one goal: go viral, get famous, build something big enough to change their lives. Pedro was the one who kept pushing for bigger, crazier stunts. He had been obsessed with the idea of filming a video that would blow up and put them on the map, and he had come up with what he believed was the ultimate stunt. Mona Lisa would shoot a .50 caliber Desert Eagle handgun at a hardcover encyclopedia that Pedro would hold against his chest. He was convinced the book would stop the bullet. He had reportedly tested it before with a different book and a smaller caliber round. He told Mona Lisa it would work. He told her it would change everything. She was not sure. She expressed hesitation publicly in that very tweet, but Pedro kept pushing. He wanted the video. He wanted the views. They set up 2 cameras in their backyard. Pedro held the encyclopedia flat against his chest. Their 3-year-old daughter was standing nearby. Mona Lisa stood approximately 1 foot away, aimed the Desert Eagle, and pulled the trigger. The bullet went straight through the book and into Pedro's chest. He died almost instantly. Mona Lisa screamed. The cameras kept recording. When police arrived, they found Pedro Ruiz III on the ground, a hardcover encyclopedia with a bullet hole through it lying next to him. Mona Lisa was hysterical. She told officers exactly what had happened. She told them Pedro had wanted to do it. She told them she had not wanted to, but he had convinced her. The footage from both cameras confirmed her account of the setup. It did not matter. A man was dead, and the entire thing had been recorded. Mona Lisa Perez was charged with second-degree manslaughter. In December of 2017, she pleaded guilty. She was sentenced in March of 2018 to 180 days in jail, to be served in 10-day intervals spread across 3 years, along with 10 years of supervised probation. The sentence drew criticism from both sides. Some felt it was far too lenient for taking a human life. Others saw Perez as a victim herself, a pregnant teenager who had been pressured into a deadly stunt by a boyfriend. who would not take no for an answer. The truth probably sits somewhere in the middle of those two positions, in a place that is uncomfortable for everyone involved. But here is what no amount of legal debate can soften. A 3-year-old girl watched her father die in their backyard. A baby was born months later who would never meet his dad. A 19-year-old mother became a convicted killer before she was old enough to legally buy a drink. And all of it happened because two young people believed that YouTube fame was worth any risk, that going viral would somehow make their lives better, that the algorithm rewarded people who dared to go further than anyone else. The La Mona Lisa channel saw a massive spike in traffic after Pedro's death. People who had never heard of them suddenly flooded in to watch their old videos. The algorithm did not care why people were clicking. It just promoted the content. Pedro Ruiz III died at 22 years old, holding a book he believed would save his life, 1 foot away from the barrel of a desert eagle, in front of his own daughter, with 2 cameras rolling. All for a video that was supposed to make them famous. And if that story shows how far creators will go for views, it barely scratches the surface. Because what happened next took place on a live stream, in real time, with viewers watching and paying for every second of it. Replay Stanislav Reshetnikov. On December 2nd, 2020, hundreds of people were watching a live stream from a cramped apartment somewhere in Russia. The streamer was a 20-year-old man named Stanislav Reshetnikov, known online as Replay. He was part of a growing subculture of Russian trash streamers, creators who performed increasingly violent and degrading acts on camera in exchange for viewer donations. That night, his 28-year-old girlfriend, Valentina Grigorieva, was lying motionless on the floor, pregnant, barely clothed, and not moving. Viewers typed messages into the chat asking if she was okay. Some donated money. Some told Reshetnikov to check on her. Some kept watching. Valentina Grigorieva was dead. This was not the first time Reshetnikov had abused her on camera. Far from it. His streams had become notorious for exactly this kind of content. In previous broadcasts, he had been filmed pepper spraying Grigorieva in the face, slapping her, breaking ceramic plates over her head, and subjecting her to humiliating acts while viewers cheered and sent money. The more extreme the behavior, the more donations rolled in. On that December night, according to investigators, Reshetnikov had beaten Grigorieva earlier in the evening. He struck her in the head multiple times. Then, in exchange for a viewer donation of roughly $1,000, he forced her outside onto the balcony in freezing winter temperatures, wearing only her underwear. She stayed out there in the cold, while Reshetnikov continued streaming inside. At some point, he brought her back in. She collapsed on the floor. She did not get back up. A medical examination later revealed the full extent of what had been done to her. Valentina Grigorieva died from a combination of hypothermia and traumatic brain injuries. The report detailed a cerebral hemorrhage, multiple bruises covering her body, and injuries consistent with repeated blunt force trauma. She was 28 years old and carrying an unborn child. Reshetnikov was arrested almost immediately. When police questioned him, he showed little emotion. He had been streaming when she died. He had continued streaming after she stopped breathing. He only called emergency services when viewers in the chat started threatening to call the police themselves. The case sent shockwaves through Russian media. It was not just the brutality, it was the fact that an audience had watched it happen in real time, and that some of them had actively paid for it. One viewer had literally donated money to make Reshetnikov put a pregnant woman outside in sub-zero temperatures, and Reshetnikov had done it without hesitation. He was charged with intentional infliction of grievous bodily harm resulting in death. In April of 2021, Stanislav Reshetnikov was convicted and sentenced to 6 years in a Russian maximum security prison. 6 years. For beating a pregnant woman, exposing her to lethal cold, and watching her die on a live stream while his audience threw money at the screen. 6 years for ending 2 lives, hers and the unborn child she was carrying. The case prompted Russian lawmakers to introduce legislation cracking down on the trash streaming trend, targeting content that features violence, humiliation, or the endangerment of life for profit. Whether that legislation goes far enough is a question that remains open. The trash streaming subculture did not disappear after Valentina's death. It just got quieter for a while. Valentina Grigorieva's name trended on social media for a few days after her death. Then the internet moved on, the way it always does. But she does not get to move on. She died on a cold floor in a small apartment, while hundreds of strangers watched from the other side of a screen. Some of them donated money for it, some of them did nothing, and one of them hit the record button. What happened on Replay's stream was content creation at its most inhuman. But the next story involves a different kind of horror entirely. A YouTuber, a chef, a son of famous actors, who committed a crime so gruesome on a Thai island that it made international headlines overnight. Daniel Sancho Broncalo. Daniel Sancho Broncalo was not some anonymous internet personality scraping for subscribers. He was the 30-year-old son of 2 of Spain's most famous actors. He had a cooking channel. He had connections in the entertainment industry. He had a life that, on paper, most people would envy. In August of 2023, he murdered a man in Thailand, dismembered his body, and scattered the remains across the island of Koh Phangan. The victim was Edwin Arrieta Arteaga, a 44-year-old Colombian plastic surgeon. Arrieta and Sancho had a prior relationship, the exact nature of which became central to the trial. What is known is that both men were on the island at the same time, that they had been in contact beforehand, and that on the night of the murder, something between them turned fatal. Sancho would later claim self-defense, alleging that Arrieta had attempted to sexually assault him and that he acted in a moment of panic. Prosecutors did not buy it, and the evidence they presented made it clear why. Surveillance footage from stores on the island showed Daniel Sancho, in the days leading up to the killing, purchasing a long knife, rubber gloves, garbage bags, and cleaning supplies. He was shopping for the aftermath before the crime had even happened. This was not a man acting in spontaneous self-defense. This was a man preparing. After killing Arrieta inside a rented bungalow, Sancho dismembered the body. He then transported the remains to at least 7 different disposal sites across the island. Some body parts were dumped in the ocean. Others were placed in trash bags and left in dumpsters. Trash collectors found some of the remains before police even knew a crime had been committed. When investigators closed in on Sancho, he led them to each of the 7 sites. He cooperated, at least in that sense. But cooperation after dismembering a human body and scattering it across an island does not erase what happened in that bungalow. The trial took place in Thailand and drew massive international media coverage, partly because of Sancho's family fame and partly because of the sheer brutality of the crime. Thai prosecutors pushed for the death penalty. The court initially agreed, and for a period of time, Daniel Sancho Broncalo sat in a Thai prison cell facing execution. On August 29, 2024, the court found Daniel Sancho Broncalo guilty of premeditated murder and sentenced him to death. However, because of his cooperation with the investigation and his willingness to lead police to the disposal sites, the sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. The court also ordered him to pay $125,000 in restitution to Edwin Arrieta's family, a sum that could never come close to compensating for what was taken from them. Sancho is currently imprisoned in Thailand. Under international agreements, he may eventually be eligible to transfer to a Spanish prison after serving several years, but that outcome is far from guaranteed. His famous parents, who had built decades of goodwill in the Spanish entertainment industry, now face a legacy permanently scarred by what their son did on a tropical island in Southeast Asia. Edwin Arrieta Arteaga was a 44-year-old surgeon. He had a career, a family back in Colombia, people who loved him. He traveled to an island in Thailand and never came home. His body was found in pieces, scattered across dumpsters and shorelines, because a man with a cooking channel and a famous last name decided his life was disposable. The surveillance footage is what stays with you. A man calmly buying a knife, gloves, and garbage bags, knowing exactly what he was about to do, walking through a convenience store like he was picking up groceries, planning the destruction of another human being with the same casual efficiency you would use to plan a trip to the market. Daniel Sancho Broncalo had everything: a name, a platform, a future most people would kill for, and he threw it all away on a Thai island, one garbage bag at a time. If you're liking this video and you're not subscribed yet, now's the time. We drop new cases every day. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Mikhail Philetas. His YouTube channel had over 1,300 videos. The titles included How to Destroy Your Ex and Authoritarian Women Rhyme with Hitler. He called himself an expert in masculinity, a seduction coach, a man who understood what women really needed, even if they did not know it themselves. On January 29, 2020, Mikhail Philetas drove to his ex-girlfriend's home and stabbed her 80 times. Melanie Gaione was 34 years old. She had ended her relationship with Philetas, and he could not accept it. Not because he loved her, because he believed she belonged to him, and his entire online persona, built across years of videos preaching male dominance and female submission, had convinced him that a woman leaving was not just a breakup, it was an act of war. Philetas did not just go after Melanie that night. When he arrived at her home, he found her new boyfriend there. He stabbed the boyfriend more than 30 times. The man survived, barely, after emergency surgery. Then Philetas found Melanie's sister in the home. He sexually assaulted her and stabbed her more than 30 times as well. She also survived, but with injuries that would alter the rest of her life. Then he found Melanie, and he did not stop until she was dead. 80 stab wounds. The medical examiner's report described a level of violence so extreme that it went far beyond what was needed to kill. This was not a crime of impulse. This was rage given physical form. Before attacking her sister, Philetas told her something that investigators later used to establish premeditation. He said, "I am going to murder you, and the police will be taking me." He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew how it would end, and he did it anyway. Philetas was arrested the next day in the Rhône region of France. He offered no resistance. He had nowhere left to go. The trial drew national attention in France, not just because of the brutality, but because of what Philetas had been doing online for years before the murder. Prosecutors presented excerpts from his videos as evidence of a pattern of radicalization. His content promoted the idea that men were entitled to control women, that women who asserted independence were dangerous, and that masculine authority should be enforced by any means necessary. Over 1,300 videos, uploaded over several years, building a worldview that ended with a knife in his hand and a woman dead on the floor. In January of 2023, Mikhail Philetas was found guilty of murder, attempted murder, and sexual assault. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with a 22-year minimum security period, meaning he cannot even be considered for release for more than 2 decades. The court heard testimony from psychologists who described Philetas as a man whose online persona and real-world beliefs had become indistinguishable. He did not just make videos about controlling women. He lived it. He breathed it. And when one woman dared to leave him, The ideology became a death sentence. He appealed the verdict. In February of 2024, the appeals court returned the exact same sentence: life. The panel of judges saw no reason to offer leniency to a man who had committed a premeditated femicide while also attempting to kill 2 other people in the same attack. Melanie Gaioni was 34 years old. She had tried to leave. She had done what every domestic violence advocate tells women to do: get out, move on, start over. And the man she left tracked her down and killed her in her own home, leaving 80 wounds in her body as a final statement of the ownership he believed he was owed. Philetas's channel was not fringe content hidden in a dark corner of the internet. It had an audience. People watched those videos, liked them, shared them, commented their agreement. More than 1,300 times, he uploaded content telling men that women were the enemy. And then he proved that he believed every word of it. But while Philetas's crimes grew from an ideology he broadcast to the world, the next case involves a man whose public persona was all charm, all laughs, all entertainment. Until the day he installed a listening app on his daughter's iPad and used it to commit a double murder. Jinn Kid, Ali Abulaban. Ali Abulaban had nearly 1 million followers on TikTok. Funny, charismatic, with Scarface impressions that went viral overnight. People loved him. Comments under his videos called him a legend, a natural comedian, a family man living the dream in a luxury San Diego high-rise. On October 21st, 2021, he walked into an apartment, pulled out a gun, and shot 2 people to death while his 5-year-old daughter waited in the car outside. Ali Abulaban, known online as Jinn Kid, was not the person his followers thought he was. Behind the comedy clips and the Al Pacino voice, he was a man consumed by jealousy, control, and escalating violence. His wife, Anna Abulaban, had been trying to leave him for months. She had kicked him out of their apartment, was pursuing a divorce, seeking a restraining order, doing everything right. It was not enough. In the days before the murder, Ali had secretly installed a monitoring application on their 5-year-old daughter's iPad. The iPad stayed in the apartment with Anna. The app let Ali listen to everything happening inside, turning his own child's device into a surveillance tool. On the morning of October 21st, Ali was listening remotely when he heard something that shattered him. Anna was with another man, a 29-year-old friend named Rayburn Barron. They were talking on the couch in the apartment Anna had fled to for safety. Ali drove to the building. He had a gun. He went straight to the apartment. When he walked in, Anna and Rayburn were sitting on the couch together. He shot Rayburn Barron first. Then he shot his wife, Anna Abulaban. Both were killed instantly. He left the apartment, got back in his car, and called his mother. He confessed immediately. When police arrived, they found his 5-year-old daughter in the vehicle. She had been there the entire time. Anna Abulaban was 28 years old. Rayburn Barron was 29. Neither one of them had done anything wrong. They were 2 people sitting on a couch in what was supposed to be a safe space, and a man with a gun and 1 million followers decided that was enough reason to end their lives. The trial began in 2024. Prosecutors presented the surveillance evidence, the history of domestic violence, the restraining order Anna had been pursuing, and testimony from friends and family who described Ali as possessive, volatile, and increasingly dangerous in the months before the killings. Witnesses described a man who could not handle rejection, a man who monitored his wife's every move, a man who escalated from verbal threats to physical violence and then, when Anna tried to leave for good, to murder. The defense argued that Ali had acted in a moment of emotional crisis, that hearing his wife with another man had triggered a psychological break. The jury did not buy it. Installing a spy app on a child's device, driving to the apartment with a loaded weapon, And executing two people on a couch does not look like a man in the grip of sudden madness. It looks like a man who had already decided what he was going to do. On May 29, 2024, Ali Abulaban was found guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder. On September 6, 2024, he was sentenced to 2 consecutive terms of 25 years to life. The judge made the meaning of that sentence explicit. He said Ali Abulaban will die in prison. He will never be a free man. Anna Abulaban was 28 years old. She had a daughter. She had a life she was trying to rebuild. Rayburn Barron was 29. He was a friend who was in the wrong apartment at the wrong time. Both of them deserved to walk out of that room alive. Neither one did. Nearly 1 million people followed Jin Kid for laughs. They watched a man do Scarface impressions and crack jokes and play the role of the fun, harmless entertainer. None of them saw the restraining order his wife was filing. None of them heard the arguments through the walls. None of them knew about the app on the iPad. That is the thing about a screen. It only shows you what someone wants you to see. And if Jin Kid's story is about a man who hid violence behind comedy, the next case is about a man who hid murderous intent behind travel vlogs and baby crib assembly videos, all while planning to kill his wife in broad daylight. Habibur Masum. Days before he murdered her, Habibur Masum posted a vlog from Barcelona. Smiling, sightseeing, performing normalcy for the camera like a man without a single dark thought in his head. It was all a lie. The trip was a cover. He was building an alibi, creating distance from what he was about to do. And when he flew back to England, he went straight to the city where his wife was hiding, found her pushing their baby in a pram on a public street, and stabbed her 25 times. Kulsuma Akhtar was 27 years old. She had left Habibur Masum because he was violent. She had moved into a domestic violence refuge in Bradford, trying to protect herself and their infant child. She was doing exactly what society tells women in danger to do: leave, seek shelter, start over. It did not save her. Masum was a 27-year-old Bangladeshi national who had come to the United Kingdom to study digital marketing. He ran a YouTube channel called MDHR Masum Official, posting lifestyle content and travel vlogs. To anyone watching his videos, he looked like a young man enjoying life abroad, building a brand, living his dream. Behind the camera, he was tracking his wife's location through Snapchat. He knew exactly where she was staying. He knew the streets she walked. He knew the route she took when she went out with the baby. And on April 6, 2024, he was waiting for her. The attack happened on a street in Bradford in the middle of the day. Kulsuma was pushing her baby in a stroller when Masum approached her. He stabbed her 25 times. Then he slit her throat. Witnesses on the street watched in horror. Some tried to intervene. It was too late. The baby, still in the pram, was physically unharmed, covered in proximity to unimaginable violence, but alive. Masum fled the scene immediately. He had previously told someone close to him, "I am going to murder you and the police will be taking me." Those were not the words of a man acting in the heat of the moment. That was a man who had made his decision and was simply waiting for the right day to carry it out. Police launched a massive manhunt. They found Masum 170 miles away in Aylesbury, attempting to flee. He was arrested and charged with murder. At the time of the killing, Masum had been on bail with explicit conditions to stay away from Kulsuma. A court had already determined he was enough of a threat that legal boundaries were put in place to protect her. He violated those conditions, drove to Bradford, and killed her anyway. The investigation uncovered a digital trail that painted a chilling picture. Months before the murder, Masum had posted YouTube videos of himself assembling a baby crib, smiling at the camera like a proud father. He posted content about his life, his studies, his travels. He was performing the role of a normal young man while simultaneously planning to murder the mother of his child. In June of 2025, Habibur Massoum was found guilty of murder. On July 22, 2025, he was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term before he can even be considered for parole. Kulsuma Akhtar was 27 years old. She left her husband because he was dangerous. She went to a refuge. She took the legal steps. She did everything she was supposed to do. And on a Tuesday afternoon in Bradford, her husband stabbed her to death on a public street while their baby sat in a stroller next to her, surrounded by witnesses who could not stop what was happening. No algorithm flagged the danger. No platform pulled his content. No one watching his Barcelona vlog had any idea that the man smiling on camera was about to commit murder. He posted the travel video, boarded a plane home, tracked his wife through Snapchat, and killed her in broad daylight. The baby he had assembled a crib for on camera was sitting inches away when he drove the knife into her mother 25 times. The cruelest detail might be the simplest one. Kulsuma Akhtar was in a domestic violence refuge. She had asked for help. She had been given protection. She had been told she would be safe. And a man with a YouTube channel and a Snapchat account found her anyway. That is 2 cases in a row where women did everything right and still did not survive. But not every crime on this list involves violence against another person. Sometimes the victim is the legal system itself, and the criminal is a man who turned federal fraud into a lifestyle brand. Omi and a Hellcat, Bill Omar Carrasquillo. Bill Omar Carrasquillo had 819,000 YouTube subscribers, a mansion full of cameras, and a driveway that looked like a luxury car dealership. Lamborghinis, Hellcats, Ferraris, all parked in a row. He filmed himself buying them, driving them, showing them off. His channel, Omi and a Hellcat, was a monument to excess, and his audience could not get enough. What his audience did not know was where the money was actually coming from. Between 2016 and 2019, Carrasquillo operated an illegal internet television service called Gears TV Reloaded. The business model was straightforward piracy. He took content from major cable and streaming providers, repackaged it, and sold access to over 100,000 subscribers for $15 a month. No licensing fees, no distribution agreements, no permission from anyone. The operation generated over $34 million, and Carrasquillo spent that money as fast as it came in, pouring it into the fleet of cars, the jewelry, the real estate, and the YouTube content that made him look like a self-made success story. He grew up in North Philadelphia, rough childhood, limited options. He had previously been involved in drug dealing before pivoting to what he described as a loophole in the entertainment industry. Except it was not a loophole. It was a federal crime. Multiple federal crimes, actually, from copyright infringement and wire fraud to money laundering and tax evasion. The kind of charges that stack up fast when the government starts pulling threads. In November of 2019, the FBI raided his home. It was not a quiet visit. Agents seized 57 vehicles from his property, including the Lamborghinis and Hellcats that had become his entire brand identity. They also seized jewelry, cash, electronics, and financial records documenting the full scope of the operation. The raid itself looked like something out of one of Carrasquillo's own videos, except this time the cameras belonged to law enforcement. Carrasquillo was charged with copyright infringement, fraud, money laundering, and tax evasion. The government alleged that he had not only stolen content from major media companies, but had also laundered the proceeds through a web of accounts and purchases designed to obscure where the money was coming from. On top of all of that, he had failed to pay taxes on millions of dollars in illegal income. The IRS does not care how you earned it. They care that you did not report it. In March of 2023, Bill Omar Carrasquillo was sentenced to 5.5 years in federal prison. The court ordered the forfeiture of $30 million in assets and more than $15 million in restitution to the companies whose content he had stolen and resold. His entire car collection was auctioned off. The jewelry went with it. The lifestyle he had broadcast to nearly 1 million subscribers was dismantled piece by piece in a federal courtroom. Carrasquillo was released in January of 2026, having served a reduced sentence for good behavior. But the empire he built is gone. The cars, the house, the image of a man who had figured out how to beat the system. All of it was built on stolen content and funded by fraud. What made the Omi and a Hellcat case stand out was not the severity of the crime. Nobody died. Nobody was physically harmed. What made it stand out was the audacity. Carrasquillo did not hide his wealth. He filmed it. He uploaded it. He built an entire brand around showing the world exactly how much money he had, and never once considered that the FBI might be watching the same videos as everyone else. 57 cars in the driveway, 819,000 subscribers watching, and a federal indictment that proved every single one of those cars was bought with stolen money. But if Omi and a Hellcat fooled his audience about where the money came from, the final case on this list involves a man who fooled everyone about something even more fundamental. He faked a plane crash, filmed himself parachuting out, uploaded the footage for millions to see, and then lied to federal investigators about the whole thing. Trevor Jacob. On November 24, 2021, Trevor Jacob took off in a single-engine plane from Lompoc, California. He was alone in the cockpit. He had cameras mounted on the wings, on the tail, on the dashboard, and on a selfie stick he held in his hand. He was also wearing a parachute. 20 minutes into the flight, he claimed the engine failed. He did not attempt to restart it. He did not try to glide to a nearby airstrip. He did not radio for help. Instead, he opened the door, jumped out of the plane with his selfie stick, deployed his parachute, and filmed himself floating down into the Los Padres National Forest while the plane crashed into the wilderness below. Then he posted the video. He called it, "I crashed my airplane." It got millions of views, and every single second of it was staged. Trevor Jacob was not some random thrill seeker. He was a former Olympic snowboarder, a sponsored athlete, and a YouTuber who had built a following around extreme sports content. The plane crash video was part of a sponsorship deal with a wallet company. The entire stunt was manufactured from takeoff to impact, a piece of scripted content designed to go viral and sell products. But crashing a plane in a national forest is not a YouTube prank. It is a federal matter. The Federal Aviation Administration and the National Transportation Safety Board both launched investigations. And when investigators started asking questions, Trevor Jacob started lying. He told the FAA and the NTSB that the crash was a genuine emergency. He lied about the location of the wreckage. He provided false information about the sequence of events. And then, on December 10th, 2021, just 16 days after the crash, he hired a helicopter, flew back to the crash site, cut up the wreckage of the plane, and hauled it out of the forest. He then disposed of the remains in dumpsters, scattering them across multiple locations to prevent investigators from examining the evidence. He destroyed a plane crash site that was under active federal investigation. That is not reckless behavior. That is obstruction of justice. The FAA revoked his pilot's license in April of 2022. But the criminal investigation was just getting started. Federal prosecutors methodically built a case, using the very footage Jacob had uploaded to prove that the crash was intentional. The video itself showed a man who made no effort to save the aircraft, who was conveniently wearing a parachute before any emergency occurred, and who seemed remarkably calm for someone experiencing a genuine engine failure at altitude. In June of 2023, Trevor Jacob pleaded guilty to one count of obstruction of a federal investigation. During his plea, he admitted what investigators had already proven. The crash was deliberate. The motive, in his own words, was to gain notoriety and to make money. On December 4th, 2023, he was sentenced to 6 months in federal prison. 6 months for deliberately crashing an aircraft in a national forest, lying to multiple federal agencies, destroying evidence under active investigation, and admitting the entire thing was a publicity stunt for a wallet company. The sentence drew widespread criticism from people who felt the punishment was absurdly light for the scope of the crime. He endangered anyone who could have been on the ground where that plane came down. He wasted thousands of hours of federal investigators' time. He destroyed evidence that was legally protected. And he walked away with less time than some people get for shoplifting. The footage still exists online in various re-uploads. Millions of people watched a man jump out of a perfectly functional airplane, film himself doing it, and turn the whole thing into sponsored content. And for a while, it worked exactly as planned. The views came in, the sponsorship money landed, the algorithm pushed the video to millions of screens, then the FBI came knocking, and the whole thing unraveled. Trevor Jacob traded an Olympic career, a pilot's license, and his reputation for 6 months of federal prison time and a sponsorship deal with a wallet brand. He stood in a courtroom and admitted that he crashed a plane on purpose for clicks, because he believed the internet would reward him for it. He was right about the clicks. He was wrong about everything else. 10 creators, 10 careers, and 10 decisions that destroyed everything. Every single one of them had an audience, and not one of those audiences knew what was really going on behind the camera. Thanks for watching. Click here for the next video.